Recorded Books and RB Digital present Wilmington's Lie, The Murderous Coup of 1898 and the Rise of White Supremacy, by David Zucchino, narrated by Victor Bavine. Prologue. White Man's Country. Wilmington, North Carolina, November 10, 1898. The killers came by streetcar. Their boots struck the packed clay earth like muffled drumbeats as they bounded from the cars and began to patrol the wide dirt roads. The men scanned the sidewalks and alleyways for targets. They wore red calico shirts or short red jackets over white butterfly collars. They were working men, with calloused hands and sunburned faces beneath their wide-brimmed hats. Many of them had tucked their trousers into their boot tops and tied cartridge belts around their waists. A few wore neckties. Each one carried a gun. Throughout that summer and autumn, white men had been buying shotguns, six-shot pistols, and repeating rifles at hardware stores in the port city of Wilmington, North Carolina, set in the low Cape Fear country along the state's jagged coast. It was 1898. A tumultuous midterm election year. White planters and business leaders had vowed to remove the city's multiracial government and black public officials by the ballot or the bullet, or both. Few white men intended to navigate election week that November without a firearm within easy reach. There was concern among whites in Wilmington, where they were outnumbered by blacks, that stores would run dry on guns, and that suppliers in the rest of the state and in nearby South Carolina would be unable to meet the demand. Gun sales soared. J.W. Murchison, who operated a hardware store in downtown Wilmington, sold 125 rifles in October and early November alone. That was 4 or 5 times his normal sales. These were Colt and Winchester repeating rifles, capable of firing up to 16 rounds in rapid succession. Murchison also sold more than 200 pistols during that same period and nearly 50 shotguns. Owen F. Love, a smaller hardware dealer, sold 59 guns of all types during October and early November. Murchison and Love were proper white men, which meant they sold firearms only to other white men and primarily to those who were supporters of the white supremacist Democratic Party. They did not sell to blacks. When pressed on the subject later, Owen Love responded, "I had no objections to selling to any respectable man, white or colored, but I would refuse to sell cartridges, pistols, or guns to any disreputable Negro." Years later, one of the city's leading white supremacists wrote, "It is doubtful if there ever was a community in the United States that had as many lethal weapons per capita as in Wilmington at that time." This was only a slight exaggeration. Among the city's whites, there were almost as many guns as men, women, and children. Wilmington, with a population of 20,000, was the largest city in North Carolina, but the demand for weapons had exhausted the supplies of all the gun merchants in town. They telegraphed emergency orders to dealers in Richmond and Baltimore who loaded guns and bullets onto railroad cars headed south. For months, whites had been railing against what they called Negro rule, though black men held only a small fraction of elected and appointed positions in the city and the state. White politicians and newspapers warned that if blacks continued to vote and hold office, black men would feel empowered to seize white jobs, dominate the courts, and rape white women. "Nigger lawyers are sassing white men in courts. Nigger root doctors are crowding white physicians out of business," complained Colonel Alfred Moore Waddell, a former Confederate officer who led the white gunmen as they raced through the streets on the morning of November 10th. In 1898, a field representative for the American Baptist Publication Society called Wilmington the freest town for a Negro in the country.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.